set, go. And hi, we're back, Devil's Advocate. And Alana has some more questions for us with regards to, well, you ask the questions, Alana. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say, as we were discussing before, with sort of what's surfacing on the internet with these conspiracy theories, what's true, what's not true, what's right, what isn't right. And I would love to know more about there was a term that we mentioned before, psychological warfare. I would love to go into more in depth with that with you. What does that mean? What's the sort of basic definition of psychological warfare?
Oh, well, it's for hearts and minds of the people you're trying to convince you're doing the right thing or doing these things for. I mean, if we take a look what we've been talking about in recent weeks with the issue with Ukraine and Russia, and going back to the likes of Google's, and excuse me while I disappear here and we go through some of these pictures. You've got Google's about the lie told, yada yada, fish paste, and this helps in the modern world. This is aided by the likes of these wonderful, wonderful news corporations we have, and there are some, you have to be very, very specific about where you get the news, because otherwise you're just hearing other people repetitively repeating what comes off of, I'm going to call them Murdoch media. Now, do you know what I mean by the Murdoch media?
Not quite.
Have you heard of Rupert Murdoch? He owns Fox News, Sky.
I know of the name. I think
News
I've heard
of the
that one
World,
quite
which I think is dead now because of a whole bunch of corruption and bad news journalism on that side. Daily Telegraph, well, that might not be his, but there's a bunch of news outlets that started off in Australia that are owned by Rupert Murdoch, and he's got a group of them now in the UK and in USA and of course Australia. And the one thing he said is he really wanted, Brexit was a big thing for Murdoch's media, about getting us out of the EU, because the likes of Rupert Murdoch, he wants to be able to have say and pull in politics. And if he went into the EU, they just wouldn't even bother taking his calls. But you phone up Boris Johnson or Cameron or Keir Starmer, and they're all going to take his calls, and they're all going to adhere to his billionaire stance as media mogul of the world, just about.
Right.
So you have to be really careful where you're getting the news from. Otherwise, the people you're talking to are just repeating Hannity or what's that other guy's name? Can't even remember. I don't watch Fox News, so they're so loud. They do tend to get and you're talking about conspiracy theories, and these are all spread even by accident sometimes by the big news, the traditional media like CNN or Sky. They all kind of like go towards this stuff. Then you got the social media.
Social media is dangerous in the sense that when one person has an opinion, either people will fight and have a war over it, or people will agree with it. And then it basically spreads miscommunication, possibly facts that aren't quite true. So it's almost like tossing oil into the fire when it comes to social media. You know, like,
there's a song about that, putting out fire with gasoline.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. It is like that. I think it's such a dangerous concept, social media, in the sense that like people can also get quite aggressive online, you know, they tend to have a warfare online even, you know, if one person doesn't agree with a certain opinion, it's like, yeah, but what about this? And, you know, there's people even saying, and I hate to offend those who say this, but, you know, they're even saying that what's happening in Ukraine isn't true, you know, I think I mentioned that to you before, that some people were saying, oh no, these images are from years and years and years ago that are floating around the internet. And that's such a dangerous thing to say, because this is real life. This is real life. This is something that is genuinely happening in another country. Just because, as we were saying before, it's not on our doorstep doesn't mean that it's not happening right now to those poor souls.
Well, that's the whole thing, the whole idea of fake news. And it doesn't take much to come up with a conspiracy or fake news. And considering the fact that all the pictures that I'm currently using or have been using recently are all off the internet. And I've used historic pictures, I've used pictures from recent events. And once you've got a stock picture, and I'm going to use a specific, and it's not a specific newspaper or outlet, but a specific country rather. For example, when Israel is saying that they've been attacked or been bombed by Palestine, they're not actually showing the bombs that Palestine use or pictures of the IEDs or the small handmade kitchen crap that you put into like a homemade bomb and toss over a wall. It's not one of those, which is what the Palestinians use. But when they're showing the news, they will show the huge dynamics that the missiles and the actual bombs that Israel use. But because you've got this story with those photographs, people then perceive that Palestine has more firepower than they actually have. And while some people will see this as a comparative war or battle or long-term 70-year occupation, come please, bomb us every fucking Ramadan. Pardon my French. It's not, they're just twisting a fact, either by picture or by taking that fact and adding it to something so disparate. But you repeat it often enough, as Google said, and eventually people are going to believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to that quote, what you just said, darling. And it's actually quite terrifying how good editing skills are these days, because I've seen, especially as a lot of it on Facebook, where they're like, oh, look at these beautiful photos that have been restored from the 1900s or the 1800s. They'll put color in there and they'll actually edit the women's hair color. And I actually saw another thing, a video on the Tasmanian the Tasmanian tiger, I think it was, or Tasmanian wolf or something, creature that had gone extinct. Can't remember when, maybe in the 1900s or something. They literally restored this video and they put color into it, and that's kind of scary to me, because it's like, I'm wondering.
Well, on that note,
people are doing that with older war photos.
But before we carry on with that particular thing, let me stop this recording here, and we'll carry on with part 2 of this shortly.